Remember these things? This is a tensor lamp. These used to be very common when I was a kid in the 80s and 90s, but you hardly see them anymore. It's a very small desktop lamp with a wood grain finish base, an adjustable arm, and a swiveling lamp fixture. There's a small bulb in there, and you get a switch on the front to select low or high brightness. The tensor lamp was invented by J. Monroe of Brooklyn, New York in 1959 and was first sold commercially in 1960. Within a few years, it was so popular that the Tensor Lamp Company was doing $3 million of business per year, and by the mid-1960s, there were a dozen different brands making their own knockoffs of the Tensor lamp. And probably the Tensor lamp's biggest claim to fame that my viewers would recognize is that the gooseneck version of it was featured in The Brave Little Toaster. It was mentioned by name in the original book, although the Disney film adaptation reduced the resemblance to the real thing when it became the character Lampy. The main idea of the Tensor lamp is that by using a 12-volt automotive light bulb instead of a conventional 120-volt light bulb, you get a brighter, whiter light for the equivalent amount of wattage. So the wood grain styled base has a transformer in it which converts the AC line voltage down to either 6 volts for the low brightness or 12 volts for the high brightness. And surprisingly, there's not much difference between the two. The low brightness is, I would say, 2/3 the brightness of the high brightness instead of only half. Another design aspect of the Tensor lamp is that by using this tightly shrouded lampshade, it gives you a narrow field of illumination, allowing you to concentrate on your work with a minimum of background distractions. And it also allows you to read in bed without disturbing your partner. The Tensor lamp was also favored for its better color accuracy than a conventional incandescent lamp. I found a reference in a book about collecting coins which recommended a Tensor lamp because of its better color accuracy, which allows you to get a better indication of the condition of the coin. Unfortunately, I don't have anything more exotic on hand to demonstrate that with than a Canadian quarter, so this will have to do. As the sticker on the lampshade indicates, it's designed to use a Type S8 or number 93 bulb, 14 watts maximum. And you can still buy those bulbs today. This was a pack of 2 Type 93 13 watt 12 volt bulbs I got at Home Depot. I already used one because the lamp was missing the bulb when I got it. And a very common Type 1156 automotive brake light bulb will fit because they both use the same bayonet base. But don't try to use one because these are 27 watt bulbs, which considerably exceeds the 14 watt maximum rating of the Tensor lamp. The better models of these lamps have an automatic circuit breaker, so if you try to use a bulb that has too high of a wattage, it'll just flash on and off as that circuit breaker cuts out and then comes back on. However, most of these have a fuse, and as you can see, the case is riveted shut, so you'll have a difficult time getting this open to replace that fuse. And I can hear something rattling around inside here as I move it around, so it's a good thing it's still working. And the claim of these providing a brighter light than a conventional 120 volt bulb still holds true today. You can see here it's rated at 188 lumens for 13 watts. And here's a 15 watt 120 volt bulb. It only puts out 100 lumens. However, because the lower voltage is putting a greater amount of current through the filament, the life of the bulb suffers. It's only rated at 700 hours, while this conventional 15 watt bulb says 2.3 years life, and that's rated at 3 hours of use per day. So if you do the math, that works out to 2,500 hours. For a fair comparison of brightness, I put one of those conventional 120 volt 15 watt bulbs into this banker style desk lamp, which I have positioned next to the Tensor lamp, and with my camera set to manual exposure, I'll turn on the conventional 15 watt lamp, and I'll switch over to the Tensor lamp, and I think you can tell right away it's definitely brighter and whiter. Even if it's set to low brightness, it's still brighter than the conventional 15-watt lamp. And interference from the transformer in the base of a tensor lamp was famously blamed by the White House in 1973 for being partly responsible for the 18-minute section of the Nixon tapes that got erased. It is true that a transformer creates a magnetic field, which may be picked up by a tape head as a hum and possibly interfere with a recording. But in the case of the tensor lamp, that transformer is inside a metal box which shields it so we don't get any hum picked up by the tape recorder. So I think it's highly unlikely that a tensor lamp's transformer was responsible for erasing 18 minutes of tape. But one actual danger of the tensor lamp, because of its high intensity bulb with a large amount of current going through the filament, especially if you leave it on for a long time set to the high brightness, it can actually burn your fingers if you inadvertently reach for this metal lampshade to adjust it. Ouch. As for how long the Tensor company continued to manufacture these high-intensity lamps, Wikipedia claims they went out of production around 1980. However, I highly doubt that, because this one here, if you can read it, was made in China. There you can see made in China, and Chinese-made items didn't become common until the late 80s or early 90s. Also, in the early to mid-1990s, the Tensor company sold the Eurolight, which was the same basic idea and used the same bulb, but had updated styling. And on the bottom it has the same factory code sticker as my Model 1500 Tensor lamp. So despite its then outdated wood grain styling, I'm pretty sure this lamp was made in the 1990s as well. The downfall of the humble little Tensor lamp was the introduction of these monstrosities, the halogen desk lamp. These were incredibly popular in the 1980s, and they can get bright as the sun. That's just ridiculously bright. And if you think the Tensor lamp was bad because you can burn your fingers if you touch it, these things were famous for causing fires. And actually, with the camera set to manual white balance, if I try to match the brightness of the Tensor lamp and the halogen lamp, I think you can see it actually puts out a more yellowish color of light than the Tensor lamp. So the claim of this thing producing a brighter, whiter light is still true. It has a very nice neutral white color to it. Again, here's the halogen lamp, and here's the Tensor lamp. You can see it definitely produces a whiter light. And it won't burn your house down. So even though it is not as efficient as a modern LED lamp, I think if you want a very nice neutral color temperature lamp with full spectrum, good color accuracy, and a nice modest amount of light on the low setting, I think a Tensor lamp is a good way to go. They are starting to get hard to find, but they made millions of these things, so it shouldn't be especially valuable. And like I said, you can still buy the bulbs for them. You can still buy new Tensor lamps today, which of course are LED based. The brand name is now owned by a company called Lucidity Lights, and the Contact Us page on their website shows a vintage Tensor lamp, which of course they don't sell anymore.
What's a good length for a video?
Actually, Bob, 5 to 10 minutes is really about the maximum. After that, you're in danger of boring your audience.
Always leave them wanting more, huh?
Exactly.